Imagine stumbling upon an old, forgotten cartoon reel in your attic, hidden away for reasons you're soon to unearth. In the dimly lit confines of my attic, tucked away beneath a dust-laden quilt, I found it. A curious relic of a bygone era, an ancient cartoon reel. Its metal casing was tarnished by time, yet it bore a distinct symbol that immediately caught my attention. A question mark, but not just any question mark. This one was wrapped in an unsettlingly twisted smile, almost as if the symbol itself was mocking my ignorance. The more I looked at it, the more the symbol seemed to dance in the low light, its cryptic grin growing wider, more menacing. It was as if the reel itself was alive, whispering tales of its past, urging me to unravel its secrets. And so, with my curiosity piqued, I decided to delve into the origins of this peculiar artifact and its uncanny content. The reel was old, very old. As I held it in my hands, I could feel the weight of its history. Each frame, each cell, a testament to the time and effort that had gone into creating it. Yet there was something profoundly disturbing about it. A sense of unease that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Perhaps it was the eerie silence that seemed to envelop it, or maybe it was the strange symbol that was now etched into my mind. Regardless, I knew I had to uncover the truth. I had to find out where this reel came from, who created it, and most importantly, what was on it. I felt compelled to watch it, to witness the story it had to tell. I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. As I embarked on this journey of discovery, I was blissfully unaware of what awaited me. I was about to plunge into a world of horror that was beyond my wildest imaginations. Little did I know, this cartoon was far from ordinary, and I was about to descend into a world of horror I'd never imagined. On the screen flickered a cartoon unlike anything I've ever seen, a twisted world that was disturbingly uncanny. This was not your ordinary Saturday morning cartoon. The characters were unsettling, their faces distorted, twisted into expressions that hovered somewhere between joy and despair. The protagonist, a seemingly innocent character, was drawn with wide, vacant eyes and a smile that seemed perpetually frozen. Innocent, yet there was something inherently discomforting about him. The plot was a labyrinth of disturbing events. The protagonist was caught in a cycle of endless nightmares, each more unsettling than the last. He'd find himself in a cheerful carnival, but as the scene unfolded, the bright colors would fade into grimy grays, the laughter would turn into screams, the merry-go-round would morph into a spinning wheel of terror. It was as if the cartoon was a mirror, reflecting the darkest corners of our world. It seemed to draw parallels with real-life horror stories. The cartoon's carnival could be seen as a metaphor for the world we live in, full of bright lights and noise, but hiding a sinister underbelly. Each episode left you with a lingering sense of unease. You'd see the protagonist wake up from his nightmare, his relief palpable. But then the scene would shift, and he'd find himself in another nightmare, a different setting, but the same underlying terror. The cartoon was a chilling commentary on our society, on the horrors that lurk beneath the surface. It was a stark reminder that not everything is as it seems, that behind every smile could be a world of pain. As the credits rolled, you'd find yourself in a state of quiet horror, the cartoon's disturbing images seared into your memory. The seemingly innocent character, the disturbing events, the sinister undertones, they all combined to create a chilling masterpiece of horror. And yet, there was a strange allure to it. It was like a car crash, horrific but impossible to look away from. It was a twisted tune, a chilling glimpse into the darkness that lies within us all. I was left with an uneasy feeling, a chill that ran down my spine, but the worst was yet to come. As the reel spun, a horrifying realization dawned on me. The cartoon wasn't just a twisted piece of animation, it was a mirror of reality. A cold shiver ran down my spine as the uncanny parallels between the animated horror and the real world started to become clear. It wasn't just the random coincidences that were unsettling, it was the chilling accuracy with which the cartoon depicted the series of unsolved disappearances in my town. Each character in the cartoon, each with their own twisted fate, bore an eerie resemblance to the people who had vanished without a trace. The cartoon didn't just mimic the reality, it was as if it was a grotesque reflection of it, a sinister caricature that was too close for comfort. One by one I recalled the faces of the missing people, their stories, and their unexplained disappearances. Each episode of the cartoon was like a grim echo of their fate. The cartoon's storyline was not just disturbing. It was a chilling chronicle of the town's darkest secrets, a silent testament to the horrors that had unfolded. The more I delved into it, the more I started to question everything. Was the cartoon a morbid prediction or a grim recreation of the events? Was there a dreadful connection between the animation and the reality? Could it be possible that the Twisted Toon was somehow linked to the unsolved mysteries of my town? The questions kept swirling in my mind, each more disturbing than the last. It was as if I was caught in a terrifying maze, each turn leading to a darker corner of the mystery. The cartoon was not just a piece of animation anymore, it was a puzzle that I needed to solve. A riddle wrapped in an enigma. I could feel the dread creeping up on me, tightening its grip with every passing moment. The line between the animated horror and the real-life disappearances was becoming increasingly blurred. The cartoon was no longer a mere spectacle of terror. It was a haunting mirror of reality. The line between fiction and reality was blurring, and I was caught in its chilling grip. I was no longer just a viewer. I had become a part of this horrifying narrative, and there was no turning back. As the twisted tale of the cartoon unfolded, I found my own reality beginning to echo its eerie events. Every chilling scene in the cartoon seemed to have a sinister twin in my life. A creaking door here, an inexplicable shadow there. The line between fiction and reality blurred, and I found myself living in a world that was becoming as bizarre and terrifying as the cartoon itself. The fear crept in slowly at first, a gnawing unease that kept me awake at night. But as the parallels between my life and the cartoon grew more apparent, the fear escalated into a full-blown terror. I was no longer just watching a horror story, I was living it. Each day I would wake up with a sense of dread, wondering what eerie event the cartoon would foreshadow next. The tension was suffocating, a heavy cloud that hung over me, making every moment feel like a scene straight out of a horror movie. The laughter of the cartoon characters echoed in my ears, a cruel reminder of the unseen horror that was slowly consuming my life. I tried to understand, to find some logical explanation for the strange occurrences. I dug deeper into the cartoon's history, its creators, its characters, in a desperate attempt to make sense of the nightmare that my life had become. But the more I learned, the more the fear gripped me. The cartoon was not just a twisted tale of horror, it was a mirror, a chilling reflection of my own reality. As the days turned into weeks, the horror intensified. The cartoon became my life, and my life became the cartoon. The line between reality and fiction vanished completely. I was trapped, a pawn in a horrifying game of life and death. The cartoon was no longer just a piece of animation, it was a living, breathing entity, a malevolent force that had invaded my life. I was trapped in a nightmare, a terrifying cartoon come to life. The real had run out, but the horror was far from over. The dread that had crept into my bones, the chill that shivered down my spine, they didn't dissipate. Instead, they amplified, echoing within me, a relentless reminder of the Twisted Toon and the dark connection it held. I had tried to get rid of the real. I had tried to burn it, to bury it, to throw it into the unforgiving sea, but every attempt was thwarted by a series of strange and terrifying events. The flames refused to touch the real, the ground spat it out, and the sea tossed it back onto the shore as though it were a bad taste in its mouth. Then came the dreams, the nightmares. I found myself locked in a world of black and white, surrounded by grotesque cartoon characters with wide, manic smiles. I was not a spectator anymore, I was a participant. The Twisted Toon had become my reality. Every morning I would wake up in a cold sweat, the echoes of their laughter still ringing in my ears. The boundaries between reality and the animated horror began to blur. I could hear the scratchy tune in the wind, see the exaggerated movements in the sway of the trees, and feel the malicious glee in every shadow. I was trapped, ensnared in this unending nightmare. I couldn't escape. The real, the toon, the horror, they had somehow seeped into my life, staining it with an indelible ink of terror. As I stared at the twisted smile surrounding the question mark on the reel, I asked myself, was this the end or just the beginning? The reel had stopped spinning, but the story, the nightmare, it was far from over. It had just begun to unfurl, to weave itself into the fabric of my existence, promising a future filled with a fear that was as unending as the night.